Why did you go back to the parent who abandoned you? When I was 13, my stepmom looked at me during dinner and told my dad I was starting to act exactly like my birth mother who abandoned us. My dad slowly put down his fork and stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. That wasn't the first time Rachel had made the comparison. For 2 years, she'd been planting little seeds about how I walked like my birth mom, or laughed like her, or tilted my head the same way when I was thinking. She'd studied old photos of her when dad wasn't looking and made mental notes of every similarity. It started subtle. She'd make comments about my artistic nature being just like my mother's, but her tone made it sound like an insult. When I'd forget to do a chore, she'd remind my dad that my mom was forgetful too. He'd get this dark look in his eyes and nod. The worst part was watching my dad pull away from me bit by bit. He used to come to all my school plays and help with homework. Now he'd make excuses about how I'd probably quit, just like my mother quit us. He stopped saying goodnight, stopped asking about my day. Meanwhile, my half-brother Sean, who was Rachel's biological son, could do no wrong. He got hugs and praise for C's while my A's got suspicious looks. Dad would remind me that my mother was smart too and used her brains to manipulate people before she left. 3 months ago, I won first place in the district art show. When I showed my dad the trophy, he said my mother had won awards too, but it didn't stop her from abandoning her family. Rachel rubbed his shoulder and suggested they should prepare themselves for when history repeated itself. They moved all my mom's photos to the attic. Dad said it was to help us move forward, but I knew it was because Rachel couldn't stand seeing her face. She wanted to erase her completely and make me the villain instead. Then Rachel started telling people I had concerning genetic tendencies and needed to be watched carefully. My friend Maya's mom suddenly couldn't host sleepovers anymore. Birthday party invites stopped coming. Rachel had poisoned the whole neighborhood against me. The breaking point came when I got straight A's on my report card. I thought maybe this time Dad would be proud. Instead, he threw the paper on the table and reminded me that my mother was valedictorian, but it didn't matter in the end. Rachel whispered loud enough for me to hear that I was smart enough to plan my escape. That night I heard them talking in their room. Rachel was saying I was already pulling away and planning something just like my mother did. Dad suggested using my college fund for Sean since they shouldn't waste it on someone who would just leave. The next day Rachel's jewelry went missing. She made a big show of discovering it was gone and suggested maybe I took it for attention, just like my mother used to create drama. Dad tore apart my room searching while I stood there crying. He found my diary and read it out loud to Rachel. All my private thoughts about missing my mom became evidence that I was planning to abandon them. He gave me an ultimatum. Stop being like your mother or find somewhere else to live. That weekend I was looking for camping gear in the attic when I found a box shoved behind Christmas decorations. Inside were dozens of letters addressed to me. Birthday cards, Christmas gifts, all from my birth mother with recent postmarks. She'd been trying to reach me for years. One letter had court documents showing she'd fought for custody. She hadn't abandoned us. She'd left because my dad was controlling and emotionally abusive. She'd been sending letters and gifts every month for 9 years. He'd hidden them all. I confronted them at dinner with shaking hands. Rachel immediately started her spin about how I was going through their private things with no boundaries, just like my mother. Dad wouldn't even look at the letters. When I read one out loud where my mom explained why she really left, Rachel screamed that it was all lies and manipulation. Dad grabbed the letters and started tearing them up. You want to be like her? Then get out like her. That night, I climbed out my window with my backpack and birth certificate. I took the scraps of torn letters that I'd managed to save. I used a payphone at a 24-hour diner to call the number from one of the letters. My birth mom answered on the first ring. Is this... Oh my god, I've been waiting for this call for 9 years. She drove through the night to get me. When we got back to her house, she showed me boxes full of returned letters and gifts, all marked refused in my dad's handwriting. She had a lawyer who'd been documenting everything. Dad filed a missing person report, but when police came to my mom's house, I showed them the letters and court documents. They called child services, who launched an investigation. Rachel's ex-husband came forward saying she'd done the same thing with his kids. Dad texted me once during the custody hearings. You chose abandonment, just like I knew you would. I've lived with my birth mom for a year now. Turns out the only person who abandoned me was him.